first question, of course, you know roughly what Europeana is. I think at this point in the day, everyone has heard about Europeana as the project. Yes? When the project was started, of course, there was a bit more confusion. In 2008, this was the headline, EU plans backup copy of European civilization. Which is not actually what Europeana is, but it's understandable that this is seen as being kind of the same business that Europeana actually is. The idea was that if you could take all of the cultural heritage objects that were in museums and libraries and archives and galleries and audiovisual collections, if you could put them in one place, put that digitization in one place, that you would almost have, full access to the heritage of Europe. Of course, when you set expectations like that, the results tend to not work as well. When we released the first version of the Europeana site, it immediately crashed because we weren't able to handle the demand. It actually took a while to bring it back online. But we have made good progress since then. So now, of course, Europeana is a bit more established as a project. We've been going for about 5 years. Most obviously, of course, Europeana looks to be, a website, a search engine, a fairly straightforward one, where the primary idea on every single page that we do is always, search through collections, search and find things. This is always the model, search and find. But it has to be much more complicated than this, because, of course, searching through any sort of collection is one way of engaging. But there are a lot of other ways of engaging with culture, and we try to support that in a lot of ways other than just search. In many ways, as I set the priorities for what we build at Europeana, I probably put less emphasis on our search page than I do on almost any other product that we create. So at its most basic level, Europeana could be seen as a whole series of websites, pages on the web that can engage people in particular ways. We have pages that are about particular areas of history. We have pages that play with particular technologies. We have pages that try to reach professionals in the sector. We have pages that, in fact, have some of these virtual exhibitions, these ways of putting material together. But that's really just the skin, the very bare surface of what our project is trying to do. These web pages, of course, are built on top of an API, an application programming interface, which itself does not look nearly as interesting as these sort of websites that we make. But at its core, Europeana is much closer to being this. It's much closer to being data. This data, this information is kept in a standard way such that data can connect to each other. And that's really the foundation of what it is that we're trying to build and that we're trying to do. So that application programming interface is built on top of a data service that, as we've heard, is based on about 150 aggregators at this point from all around Europe, which together represent a bit over 2,000 of these museums, libraries, archives, audiovisual collections, any memory institutions, really. So far, we have been collecting about 27 million digital objects, of which 6 million are available for any kind of reuse, including commercial, which is fairly important to us, and I'll come back to that in a moment. And of course, this continues to grow, but it's worth noting that we're not particularly interested in just having millions and millions and millions of very small pictures of artworks and very small pictures of pages. That's not really our goal. Our goal at the end is to connect the work in digitization that has been happening over the past 10 years and provide actual real value for the memory institutions themselves and also for those businesses and industries and education opportunities that grow up around that. It's really about that engagement with people. And so while we have in our database, another couple 100 million bibliographic records of all of the books in print, that's not really what we count when we think about what's in Europeana. We're thinking about objects that have actually been digitized in some form or another, and that's what we collect and point to. So we can take this network of museums and archives and collections, and we can do projects together. And we've heard about a couple of those projects already today. We've heard about Europeana Inside, we've heard about Europeana Cloud, we've heard about Low Cloud, and some of the projects like those are very focused on particular kinds of infrastructure. But we also have projects focused on, for example, photography, or a particular period of history, like the First World War, or a particular subject matter, taking material from libraries and making it accessible, or a particular kind of media or content, like the project to digitize 10 million pages of newspapers from 20th century, mostly, in Europe. So we're involved in these projects. We're involved in about 25 of them right now. It's a lot of projects going on, doing digitization work and delivering content. So there's a lot more content and complexity here than a few people in our office can deal with. So we have to have a strategy. We break this into really just 4 things that we think we can do well. And the first is the most obvious, because of course, as an aggregator, the first thing we do is to try to build the trusted source for cultural heritage. Now, we're at the very, very beginning of this. 27 million is not a lot of objects. It is, when we're at 27 billion or 270 billion, then we'll have a lot of objects. But right now, we're a very small part of 1% of actually aggregating material in Europe. So it's the very beginning of this project. But to do that, we think as a key goal of ours is actually to support the cultural heritage sector. As much as possible, we try to set technical standards, we try to teach and run workshops, we try to help with technical platforms and innovation, we try to help with advocacy on political and regulatory issues that probably affect all of us. Now, on the other side of that, though, we're trying to make heritage available. And so we have put a lot of effort into some of the ways in which we can distribute cultural heritage, again, of course. Now, our search portal, our website, that is a form of distribution, but it's a fairly trivial one. It's really only one route into a certain kind of content. What we're really after here is to try to get to a sense of engagement, of really engaging with people. And it's not that we want to, as Europeana, connect directly to all of the end users in Europe. We're not actually trying to build an engagement model that is between us and users. What we're trying to do is to find new ways for users to engage with their own cultural heritage, which is why these sorts of partnerships and these kinds of collaboration are so important. It's that engagement we're trying to build between users and culture. And so this goes along in a sort of circle. If we build the right objects, if we can make it easy to contribute, if we can find ways to make content available, then over time we can actually engage people with content. This engagement is what we do. And of course, we have some ways of engaging online. We can engage through virtual exhibitions where you can put together content to tell a particular story. We can try to create engagement between professionals in the cultural heritage sector. We can try to create engagement by highlighting particular bits of content, things like our blog or our newsletter. Just as much, we try to engage through a blog for professionals. We try to do social media experiments. But more than this, we're starting to try to find other ways that we can create this sort of engagement. And this is really where our future focus takes us, is what do you have to do to build a strong ecosystem where people are able to engage with cultural heritage, and what technology can we put in place to help that? So an offline project like the Wikipedia public art or public monuments projects, you can do a project where you say, right, here's all this great public art, people should take pictures, we'll ingest the pictures into Europeana, we'll run a contest, we can find winners, we can get a lot of publicity for what we do. So you can do things like contests with users or user-contributed content. We can run projects like hackathons. Now these are experimental events where we can say, here's our data, here's some content, and we can invite designers and technologists to come and spend a very limited amount of time trying to build interesting applications around this. And we usually find that when we do this well, lots of people are willing to come and try to find new ways to build parts of this ecosystem of engaging users with their cultural heritage. And so we try to encourage this. We try to make our technology as easy to reuse as possible. We're starting to do experiments with actually collecting content, which is really a very new thing for us because, of course, we're not the experts in collecting content or in telling stories about content. We're quite good at technical standards, but we're not museum curators. We do not have that expertise. And so this is a very unusual model for us where we can go into a community and say, in partnership with a museum or a library, we can put out a call for people to bring in their own objects, their own pieces of paper, their own diaries, material from the First World War or material from periods of turmoil in Europe. We can actually come in and start doing some digitization directly and engage with people and collect their stories. Now, we can do this, and we have been doing this for a couple of years, but we're not going to be able to generate a lot of information here. We're really basing our future on all of the ability of museums and memory institutions to be able to collect and describe what they have very well. And this is the big gap, and this is what we need to get better at. We cannot ourselves, as Europeana, we cannot possibly build the engagement platforms. There is, of course, things like Google Art and the Google Cultural Institution, but so many other localized opportunities to build an application or an exhibit or a kind of interpretation that would actually use this material that has been so carefully collected over so many years. There is such an opportunity here to really tell good stories with the collected material of Europe. But, we're just, a few people, in the Netherlands trying to keep the technology working. We are going to be relying on other institutions to tell these stories, to create these experiences. And so we have a few things that we need to do next in order to make that work. One is that, as I said, I'm increasingly putting our focus on our own application programming interface, that is the way to get to our data, and also linked open data itself. In other words, a business-to-business or business-to-organization approach. Increasingly, Europeana's audience is not going to be the people who visit museums. Increasingly, our audience is going to be museums and software developers who write software that might be found in museums, and graphic designers, and festival organizers, and educators. And the people that we connect to are going to be the organizations who have the vision about the stories that they want to tell. And our job is going to be to make that as easy as possible. To do that, we do need to get more sophisticated about our licensing. I could talk for a very long time about the licensing framework that we use now, but for the most part, it's fairly straightforward. Metadata describing objects needs to be open. The objects themselves are, as Google just said, the rights remain with the institution, but just need to be described accurately. But if we're going to support the kinds of reuse that we see as coming in the next few years, our own licensing framework needs to start dealing with some of these more sophisticated questions of, I can use this object if I am an educator, or I can use it for this period of time, or I can use it 200,000 times. We will continue our crowdsourcing campaigns. The First World War project, Europeana 1914 to 1918, has been running for a while, but we've just now launched the new project, Europeana 1989. So I would encourage you to have a look at europeana1989.eu to see what we're trying to do to use both in-person and online tools to collect memories of a time of a great amount of turmoil. And the newest thing that we're trying to do is to actually create open laboratory spaces, to start coming into places in Europe and be able to say that we have the expertise and the content and the understanding and the networks and the access to capital and the business understanding and the legal understanding to try to put all of that together into environments where some of these new kinds of application, these new kinds of stories can be made very quickly. And for us, that is going to be our long-term strategy for creating engagement. Not with Europeana as a brand. Our job is not necessarily to have everyone in Europe know that Europeana is a particular project doing this thing. Our job is to create connections between people and culture. So I would ask you to watch some of the spaces, our own websites, of course, our blogs. Our professional blog might be of particular interest because it's written very much for and by people just like you. If you have an interest in joining our project and even being part of the governance of Europeana, I would encourage you to join the Europeana network so that your voice will also be represented when we have these discussions about what we actually are and what we're doing from now. And the only question then is, what can we make and what stories can we actually tell once the collected history of Europeana is available in one place?